So what we're gonna discuss today is yes, Ansible. So, uh, cool. What is before even that? Let's talk about something. You remember this terminology, guys? What is IAC then, and why do we need it? Let me give an example. Look at it. What I'm doing, I'm logged into my AWS account, and I'm doing this. Okay, let's say I want to launch 2 servers. Okay. Look at it. How I can launch? Just come over EC2, click on launch instance, and give whatever name or tag I want to. Let's say I give an Ansible, and I'm choosing operating system as Ubuntu, and I'm choosing, come on, 22, which is free tier eligible. Cool. Okay. And instance type as T2 micro, key pair. I am selecting this one. If you don't have, you can always generate a new one, right? And I'm just selecting my existing security group. In case you don't have, please feel free to create a new security group. And that's all I'm saying. I want to launch 2 instances. Okay. And launch instance. That's all. How much amount of time it took me, guys? Or even if you have to launch, and you see, if you even have to launch your instance, how much amount of time it will take? Probably a couple of seconds, right? So this is that easy. Why do we need something like an IC replication across the environment? How much amount of time probably we are like considering here? And practically speaking, how many times you really recreate your complete environment? Probably once you set up your production environment. What do we do? Very less likely. So why do we need something called an IC? So let's assume we can track changes. Okay. But at the end of the day, Reju, whoever from the team will be executing the script, they will be executing it manually. Yes or no? So how can we keep a track of it? Sorry, I'm just playing as a devil's advocate, right? Because these all things like, someone will ask you probably in an interview, right? So why do we need IC then? I do have a counter opening on that, Jayashree. So let's say, take a simple example. So you have a very huge product, and which is very huge in terms of scale, right? And you set that up. Now, what do you think? How many times probably you will have to recreate the same huge infrastructure all over again in probably the product's lifetime? Or even taking a scenario right now in your organization, whichever project probably you might have worked or working, how many times you or your organization have recreated the same infrastructure for the product? So effort wise, if we understand, it's common, right? I mean, spread it across multiple products. Yes or no? Correct. And even, let's say, for the sake of discussion, if we even assume automation will help, who will do the automation? Some certain resources, some certain team, which will require some certain time, budget, and even resource cost. Correct? So if you compare both of the things, if you're doing manually and if you're introducing automation to do all these things, what do you think? Which will be more costly? Once you set that up, probably that would be handy, right? Again, coming back to the same question, every now and then, do we even modify our infrastructure? Correct. And if we are talking about changing on these scenarios, those would be very little changes, correct? Right. and probably changes like modifying the storage or increasing the storage from X number of GB to Y number of GB, right? Or probably just applying one of the patch, something like that, right? So does that cost justifies? For example, right now we are having a project and multiple projects, and we are hosting on one server. It's very huge server, assume. It also has network setup and whatnot. Traditionally, the way we used to have it. We thought, okay, now let's bring in IAC. Let's implement IAC. Now, IAC can be implemented at multiple layers, correct? For only creating the infrastructure or only provisioning the infrastructure, there might be different tool. For configuring the infrastructure, there might be a different tool. For templating the infrastructure, there might be a different tool. So let's say we brought all the three types of tools, and now we need people in according to implement that. And definitely we will need different people with different skill sets. So that is an additional cost, right? And those people will take probably 3 or 4 months to implement IAC. So that will be again additional cost in terms of time, right? Get the industry trained. Let's say probably dating, you will get a experience resource, because if you want to implement and your organization is new to the field like IAC, definitely you won't be relying upon first timer who is doing the thing first time, right? You will need senior resources. So time, cost, and all that thing. And even after implementing, let's say it took 3 4 months, after that, once out of the blue moon, customer is asking you to change the storage. Okay. Now, what your resource did? Just made couple of changes in the file, probably from 20 GB to 60 GB, and just rerun the script. Cool. Now, at the end of the year, you may wonder, is our DevOps team IAC? Do this much of cost at the end of the year for 3 4 5 resources? Probably we are spending somewhere in millions or even hundred thousands. Does it justifies? Creation is one time. That time probably those 3 4 months they were very productive because they were writing the script from the scratch. Later on, just couple of times in an year, it has been modified. So does it even justifies? Just outsource that work instead of hiring people on my payroll. That would be a minimal cost for me. Yes or no? And just modify that whenever the time comes, right? Do I even need any kind of DevOps or IC people in my team or in my organization or rather DevOps department itself? Think like you are talking to your CTO. I am your CTO and you are the one who is responsible for all these things. And you will need budget for that. You will need budget, cost, which you will seek an approval from your management, right? Consider me as a CTO. Huh? So probably my reply would be, I know I read somewhere and I know we are using cloud and I know that you can create something called as an images on this cloud, right? So whatever package you want, just install that on a machine, create an image and keep it handy. So whenever you want a server to be launched with all those predefined packages, instead of using default AMI or default image, you can use your customly created AMI so that you don't invest a lot of time to configure the server all over again. What is stopping you to do that? So why should we invest money into this? Right? So that level of discussion you will have to do, right? So this is something you're gonna hear every now and then. And you need to be very clear on the thought process. Let's talk about this. Why we need it. Now, there might be some sidetrack discussion, just like I brought in one point that, okay, you can use AMIs in case of AWS, right? Or in case of probably Azure, you can again, there also you have Azure images, right? So the point is these images and everything using what you are creating probably in AWS, you are just using AWS images. Even if you use, or even if you create any custom image, which kind of machines you will be able to launch using that custom image? AWS EC2 only, correct? Will it be compatible with Azure or probably on your local machine VMs or probably somewhere else in GCP with the compute engine? Will it be compatible with other flavors? Absolutely no. And this is exactly how slowly and gradually you are, in a way, you are building your dependency on or with some certain vendor. Now, assume to start with, you won't feel any difference, but assume your organization grows, like your organization grows and it grows, and there are almost now 6,000, 8,000 people are there in your organizations. Every day they are launching machines. Every day, like, they are doing like, some certain stuff in some certain capacity, right? Probably creating the infrastructure, configuring the infrastructure. And all of a sudden, what happened? AWS increased, or whatever flavor of cloud you're using, they increased their prices. And now it's very heavy for you, right? So now what you will do? You will have to seek some sort of way out of this, right? So probably you decided, okay, there are other clouds, and okay, we want to just go to Azure cloud now, or even GCP, or even like probably Oracle, right? Why? Because that is more profitable for us. They are not charging like anything, right? Their pricing is cheaper than what we have here. Now tell me, how much amount of time you will need to migrate your complete infrastructure to somewhere else? Probably it might take years. Reason, first you will have to identify. First, you will have to do the gap analysis. Gap analysis in the sense, what all things you are using here in this cloud, and what are the equivalent services, or even what are the equivalent features that you might use to your designated different cloud. That gap analysis itself gonna take some certain time, correct? And once you do the gap analysis, then you will be able to confidently tell that, okay, if we migrate, we will be able to, like, definitely, like, able to operate there, but we will have to do X number of changes in our policies, in our application code, in our probably network and respective aspects, which again further takes some certain time, right? And then followed by testing, and then the actual migration will happen. Correct? So now, if you have a very little infrastructure, it may take couple of months and you will be okay. But if you have a huge infrastructure, then probably you are now stuck with your cloud vendor. And how you got into this situation, practically speaking, just because you didn't use vendor neutral or vendor agnostic tools. So this kind of situation, we call it vendor lock-in. So this is one of the reason. Okay. Another reason is, consider a scenario where your infrastructure team or your delivery team, whoever is responsible to provision and to configure infrastructure, think about them. In day-to-day life, what do you think? They are launching like all together different machines. Every time they are launching some new type of machine, is it? Every day? Absolutely not. How they are launching machines? Because some certain other teams are requesting them infrastructure, and based on the request they are launching it. Yes or no? Correct? And whatever team is requesting them, whatever kind of infrastructure, they are requesting because of their product, right? What do you think now? When it comes to a product or a project, technology, whatever technology you are using to develop that, you are changing it every day. Today we will do development in Java. Tomorrow we will do it in probably .NET. Day after probably we will do in probably JS framework. Is this how it's gonna go ahead? Absolutely no. What happens if you chose a technology? You will stick to that technology, at least for that particular project, right? What does it mean? If I chose Java or .NET, that kind of infrastructure I gonna request to my infrastructure or delivery team, correct? That I need a Java server, I need a .NET server, whatever it is. Yes or no? So your infrastructure team probably landing up doing the same work again and again. Okay. Now operationally think. If they're doing it manually, so let's say in your team, Pramod is like the experienced infrastructure guy, and he's so experienced. If you ask him to create a server, probably it will just take 5 minutes for him to fully create a server by installing all the packages and everything else, right? Because he's experienced, he has worked so many times in the same scenario. He can just do that even while sleeping. All right, but at the other hand, let's assume uh, Hina is new to infrastructure team, right? And a ticket got assigned to Hina that, okay, create a Java server. Do you really think, as she's new to infrastructure team, do you really think it gonna take same amount of time for Hina or for anyone else? No, right? And as it is manual process, do you guarantee there will be no chances of any error? Everything would be perfect every time. Is it? No, because manual processes are always error prone, right? So operationally, it may create chaos, and it does. So now how do we handle with this scenario? So to help team, what Promote did, Promote wrote down some certain script. Okay. Promote wrote down some certain script. So it Pramod wrote down this script using, let's assume, anything in any X technology. It might be shell script, it might be CDK, anything, right? He wrote down a script. And what he wrote down in this script, so whenever you will run this script, it will create a server. Okay? It will create a server which will have some certain OS, which will have Java, some certain specific version of Java installed on it, and all the other things which are requested. So now every time a ticket comes that, okay, we need a Java server. Okay, whoever works on that ticket, what they all need to do, just run this script all over again. Yes or no? Correct. And it will create the desired server within no time. Now tell me one thing. As it is just a script, as it is just a script, do you think someone has to probably create a server manually? No. And as it is automatically gonna, execute, do you think there will be any chances for any kind of error? No. Yeah. Now, in this scenario, practically speaking, your Java server, how you are maintaining that as the script only, correct? This is what we say infrastructure as a code. Understood? This is exactly what we say infrastructure as a code. Okay. Now, if you can write a piece of code or the infrastructure, can't you write a piece of code probably to configure the infrastructure as well? Right now, this script is creating a server. Can't you write a piece of code for configuring the existing infrastructure as well? You can, correct? Can't you write a piece of code to create a network as well? Can't you write to provision your piece of code to, to provision a storage as well? Or probably to create a policy as well? So you can write down your piece of code absolutely for anything in terms of infrastructure. Correct? So nowadays, practically speaking, it's no longer only infrastructure as a code. Practically speaking, it is X as a code, meaning anything as a code. Network as a code, infrastructure as a code, database as a code, policy as a code, storage as a code, whatever you want. So now this IAC at a high level has three different categories. So first category is what? So first category is provisioning the infrastructure. Okay. Provisioning the infrastructure. Provisioning means what? Creating the infrastructure. Okay. And what kind of tools we have here in provisioning? So probably Terraform, right? Which helps you to create an infrastructure. Cloud formation is there. ARM is there, right? These kind of tools and technologies which falls under provisioning. Now you have other category. Once you have an infrastructure, what you can do with it? Probably you can configure it, right? So another is configuration tools, right? So what kind of configuration category and what kind of tools falls under configuration category? Probably Chef, Opate, SaltStack, right? These kind of things. Okay. Now, some certain organizations may have a different stack altogether, technology stack altogether, right? And for that, they do not want a different set of configuration tool and different set of provisioning tool. What they want one tool which will do provisioning as well as configuration for them, right? Provisioning as well as configuration for them. Okay. And what kind of tools we have here under this category? And what we call this category? So this category we call it templating the infrastructure. Okay. Where you not only provision it, but you also configure at the same time. Okay. And what kind of tools involved in templating? Probably Docker, Packer, right? So these kind of tools are involved in templating. Understand now, IAC? So now let's look at this configuration category first. Okay. So what is this configuration category? Cool. So if you have your existing infrastructure, it might be anywhere. It might be on cloud. It might be on premises. And if you want to configure that infrastructure, then that's where configuration category tools comes into picture. Okay. But this configuration category also has its own subcategories. Okay. This configuration category also has own subset of categories. Now, what are those categories? So, configuration category at a very high level contains two categories. Okay. And what are those? So, first is agent based tools, and another is agent less tools. Okay. Now, what is this agent based and agentless? Let's understand. So, first understand agent. What are agent based tools and or basically how they work? Now, understand. Um, every one of you is working somewhere. You must have some sort of desktop or laptop, some certain machine from your organization with you, correct? Yes or no? Have you ever observed in your machine, you must have some certain antivirus or some certain agent running 24/7, correct? As soon as you start your machine, that agent start running, correct? And just like in your machine it is running, just like that it will be running for every employee in your organization, correct? What this particular stuff does, it will basically ensure that all the security policies are effective and applied on all the machines which are part of your organization network, correct? And you are actually doing, I mean, you are not crossing the organization's employees, correct? Something like that. Or you're not crossing organization policies, right? You're not you're not allowed to probably visit social media sites. So if you try to open, it will block it, right? So whatever policies your organization may have, they are just that this agent is just making sure that those are in effect, right? Yes or no? Now, this this agent in your organization, you may have 100, 200,000, 10,000 employees. Someone must be taking care of this agent, yes or no? That it has the latest update, your machine is scanned, and something like this. Some support team must be responsible to take care of this. What ho- what do you think? How they are taking care of it? They are connecting to you. I mean, every employee's machine, they're taking remote session or connecting to you and applying the updates, and or every employee they're doing like that. No. So how they're doing it? So probably they might have some certain centralized server, correct? They might have some certain centralized server, and what they do, they are just going ahead and connecting to this server, right? Now this agent has a nature. What is the nature? It knows by default, it knows where the server is and how to connect to that server. Just like your agent will know, all other agents which has been installed on every machine, every agent will know where is that server, centralized server, and how to connect to it, right? And what these guys are doing now, the support guys, these guys are just issuing the instructions to this centralized server, something like this. Okay, scan the machine, right? Or probably install updates, whatever instructions they want. And now, whenever any agent will connect to this server and will ask, "Hey server, do you have any commands for us? Do you want us to do something?" Okay, if there are any instructions, this server will say, "Yes, I do have an instructions for you. Scan the machine and install the updates." Okay, now what this agent will do? Okay, scan the machine. It will start scanning and it will submit the update to the server. Okay, I scanned the machine and here are the results. Cool. Install updates. Okay, it will download the update from server. It will install it and it will submit the result again back to server. Now, just like the agent which is installed on your machine, just like that, every other agent will behave like this only. Correct? And at the end of the day, all these people, what they will do, they will just log into server and they will just say, okay, these many machines are there. And okay, machine has been scanned and there are no malicious things. Okay, good. Install updates. Oh, okay, updates have been installed. They will just see the result on this internet server. Yes or no? Something like that must have been happening. Correct? So in this particular scenario, what do you think? Who is doing the heavy lifting? Server, your support team, or agent? What your server is doing? Your server is just issuing the instructions. Correct? Basically, agent is doing the heavy lifting. Agent is connecting to server. Agent is going ahead and scanning the machine, executing whatever stuff needs to be executed on local machine. Agent is submitting the result and everything, right? So agent is doing the heavy lifting. Correct? This type of architecture where agent is doing the heavy lifting, that's kind of architecture we say agent based tools or agent based technologies. What are the examples are chef, Puppet. Okay. Now, now assume this. So let's say this agent. Okay, understood. Agent-based technologies are clear. What are they? Okay. Now assume this agent. It will be running 24 by 7, 365 days on your machine. And it might be even heavy in terms of nature. I mean, if it is running 24 by 7, 365 days, it will require some certain compute resources to run all the time. Yes or no? Correct? And from where it will eat up the resources? From your machine only. Correct? It will require RAM, it will require like something. From where it will take up these resources? From your machine only. Yes or no? Correct? So in this scenario, we are okay with that to share the resources. Why? Because we are just talking about on-prem infrastructure. It's just a laptop. I'm only using it, so I'm okay with it. Cool. And even if it is running slow, you will go and you will just raise a request to your organization to increase resources, and it will be done because that is one-time cost, right? But consider the same scenario probably over a cloud. Now, do you think it is acceptable for you that apart from your application, there are some certain resource heavy processes are running on your production servers? Is it okay with you? Absolutely no. And even if you want to, if you increase your type of instance, or if you increase infrastructure over a cloud, will it be one time cost just like we had in this scenario? Absolutely no. It will be a recurring cost, correct? Every month you will have to pay that cost, increased cost, correct? Cool. So, in real life, to address this problem, people came up with another solution. And what is that? Agentless. Okay, understood. And what is that? That's what is our Ansible. Okay, that's what our Ansible is. Now, let's proceed. So, let's say, how is this Ansible working if it is agentless? Okay, so understand how it works now. So, now I would be introducing you couple of new terminologies. Please understand that. Okay, now, first thing, assume, if you want to use Ansible or any tool, you will have to install that tool somewhere. Somewhere in the sense, on some certain machine, you will have to install in according to use it. Correct? Right? So, wherever you will install Ansible, that machine, what we call that machine? We call it Ansible controller. Okay? Guys, please understand, every tool will have its own vocabulary. Okay? And you should know it. Okay? So, the machine, wherever you will install Ansible, what you will call that machine? Ansible controller. Cool. Now, understand. Let's say we install that Ansible controller. Now, what you want Ansible to configure? Servers, correct? And which servers we are referring to? Our application servers only? Yes or no? Might be web servers, it might be database servers, file servers, whatever real life infrastructure you will have, you will want Ansible to configure that. Correct? So, whatever servers you have, it might be your web server, okay, database server, whatever it is, right? So, whatever servers Ansible will be taking care of, okay, what we call them in Ansible's vocabulary, we will call them node, okay, or nodes. All right. So, this is node 1, node 2, something like this, we'll call them. Is it clear? Now, in terms of installing Ansible, Ansible comes into two flavor: community, free, open source, and another is paid version. Okay. Long back, like 6 years, 7 years back, Ansible was completely open source, but Red Hat took it over and Red Hat made Ansible. I mean, Red Hat came up with another version of Ansible, which is managed one. Meaning what? You don't have to install Ansible and configure it manually. No. By default, Red Hat will give you a solution, a machine, access to machine or a cloud version of that, and where Ansible would be installed by default. And Red Hat will take care of the maintenance and everything. That version of Ansible, we call it Ansible Tower, which is paid. Okay. But in terms of features or capabilities, there is no difference. Okay. Whatever you can do with open source Ansible, you can do the same stuff with Tower as well, or vice versa. All right. Now, in this Ansible has been developed using Python. Okay. Meaning what? If you want to install Ansible, what you will have to do first thing? Install Python. Exactly. So that's a prerequisite for Ansible. Okay. And then you will install Ansible. Okay. Now for nodes, do we need to install Ansible there as well? No, we don't need to install Ansible on nodes. So what we will have to do, we will just have to install Python on the nodes. That's all. And why is that? We'll talk about it later. Okay. But on nodes, what is the prerequisite? Installing Python only. Okay. Now, so let's talk about this. Let's say if you want to install some certain library, or let's say you want to install Apache or something like that, how you will install, guys? How you will configure your machine if you have to configure it manually? So practically, you will execute some certain commands, isn't it? Right? That's how you will configure it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
At the end of the day. Okay. Now, what Ansible says, you don't go and you don't, you know, manually configure whatever nodes you want to configure. Okay. What you do, you just go ahead and you just write down whatever you want to configure in a file. Just give me your instructions, but give me in a file. Okay. So whatever instructions or whatever configuration you want Ansible to do, write them down in a file. Okay. But here's the problem. Problem is what? If I have to write down the instructions, I will be writing down those instructions in my own way. Correct? If probably Hina wants to write down the instructions, she may write down in her own way, right? Shubham will probably write down the instructions in his own way. Just like that, everyone will write down instruction differently. Now, what do you think? Will Ansible be able to understand that then? No. So what Ansible says, look, if you want to write down instructions, write them down using YAML only. Why? To standardize it, right? Okay. Now, that's why we will use YAML to write down the instructions. Okay. Now, wherever we wrote down these instructions, what we call that file? We call this file as playbook, where we have written whatever needs to be done. Okay. And now, okay, Ansible will use this file to configure your infrastructure. Cool. But guys, I mean, your web servers, database servers, you may have different infrastructure. And by now, you understand, if you want to connect to a machine, you will need some certain authentication mechanism. Yes or no? It might be username, password, it might be key-based authentication, it might be keyless authentication. But you will require at least what is the URL or IP of that machine, right? What's the username and what's the authentication mechanism? Yes or no? Correct? Anyone
yeah.
who wants to connect, you will need this information. Do you think Ansible will have that information? No. So how Ansible gonna connect? So that's exactly why what we do, we go ahead and we provide this information to Ansible. Okay. And what information we are referring to? Which all machines we have, which we want Ansible to manage, and how to connect to those machines. Clear? How to connect to those machines. Okay. And we call this file as Ansible inventory or simply inventory. And who will provide this information? We will provide this information. Got it? How this will work? Once we wrote down the playbook, we will ask Ansible to execute that playbook wherever we want, right? On node 1, node 2, or on all the machines, right? Now, Ansible will use this Ansible inventory to identify connection information, okay? And it will connect to that machine, execute whatever it has to execute, and break the connection after execution. So practically speaking, your Ansible will be connecting to your machines only for execution purpose, and it will break the connection. So your machine will also get configured, but at the same time, now compared to agent-based technologies, do you have any extra processes or any compute or resource heavy things running on your servers apart from your product? No. But at the same time, you also achieved your purpose, configuring the machine with the desired, like, with this or something. Got it? How this agent-based, agent-less technology work now? Basically Ansible. Perfect. Cool. So now let's go ahead and let's install Ansible. Now look at it. I launched two machines. I named one machine as Ansible controller because that's where I will be installing the Ansible. Now you understand why I named it, right? But just by naming this machine, I mean, does it become Ansible controller actually? No, right? We'll have to configure and you'll have to install Ansible, right? So the official Ansible website is ansible.com. Okay. Here is the Ansible's official website. Okay. And you can refer to this documentation. Okay. And this is the documentation. And here you can say, right, understand the fundamentals if you want, installing Ansible, how you can install it, right? Something like this. Okay. Here it is. So here's the Ansible documentation. I'm just sharing the link in the chat window. Okay. Cool. And now let's say we want to install. Okay. Where we want to install Ansible. Look at it. In my case, where we want to install Ansible, guys, on which operating system? Ubuntu. Correct? Right? So let's get the instructions. You see? Okay. Installing Ansible and installing Ansible on specific operating system, right? So I will open up this link, install Ansible on specific operating system, right? So you see, installing Ansible on Fedora, OpenSUSE, APL, Ubuntu, Debian, Windows, wherever you want, right? So I will choose installing Ansible on Ubuntu. And here are the instructions. Got it? Here it is, right? This is how the syntax was, right? And go ahead, web1, as we have the alias in place, Ansible underscore facts dot processor. Okay. Okay, this is unreachable by is that. Oh, sorry. I have a spelling mistake here. This is how you were doing, right? I mean, something like this. Okay. You see, it's testing something like this. It's printing. So yeah, here it is. Let me just check. Yeah. So I guess you were just giving a dot. Yeah. So the thing is, you are just putting down this dot here, right? Hostware dot. This is how you were printing it, right? Instead, this is an array, right? Hostware is an array. So no dot there. No dot required. No dot required. As this is an array which will store all the variables and host information for this particular thing. This is an index, practically speaking, which you are giving over here. Okay. And that's how you can just use it. Cool. Perfect. All right. So, just giving you a quick thing, guys. Okay. I was just crawling some sort of data for one of the ML use case and something like that. So I was just looking very quickly the DevOps jobs which are available. Okay. Do you know how many jobs are available for DevOps? And basically, what's the prediction? The prediction is somewhere around in Q1 and Q2, I mean, first half of next year, it is expected somewhere around 6 to 8,000 DevOps openings would be closed. Closed in the sense organizations will be hiring. Okay. And you can just look for them, right? Templating. So basically, guys, why we need templating, guys? Any idea? Why do we need templating? In according to reuse the things, or practically speaking, in according to go ahead and in according to make configuration according to specific host, right? According to specific host. Now, for example, understand this. Let's say yesterday's assignment, you remember, you had to go ahead and you had to modify the configuration file of Apache in according to enable Apache parse PHP, correct? Right? So how you will do that? One of the way is what? One of the way is writing down a playbook and manually use line in file module to insert or edit or replace a playbook for every line. Correct? Right? Whatever configuration you want to add in a file, right? Instead of doing that, why can't we just go ahead and write down a direct apache.conf file and deploy that file itself, or reuse that file all over again and again with specific values which are intended for specific host, right? So if you want to do that, that's where the templating, the need of templating and the need of templating engine comes into picture. Okay, that's what it is. So for a simple scenario, assume this. Probably, for Christmas, for Thanksgiving, or for any festival that we celebrate, you send wishes, your warm regards to your family, to your colleagues, right? Isn't it? How do you send it? You just create some sort of standard message, right? And you just broadcast it. I mean, you just send it to individuals, correct? What is that? That is nothing but your template. Conceptually, it is clear, guys, now. Okay. So Ansible has been developed using Python. You know that. So Python has one of the templating engine, which we call Jinja. Okay. Which we call Jinja. So we can use the same templating engine in according to go ahead and in according to write our templates. Okay. Whatever templates you want to write. So for now, let's go ahead and let's just look at the syntax of a template, how we can manipulate something. So for example, I'll just introduce a couple of syntaxes. So let's say you want to go ahead and you want to manipulate, let's say, some sort of strings. For example, I'm saying this is DevOps class. All right. Okay. So for example, you want to template as this. So this is probably, instead of DevOps, you can simply say, you can introduce some sort of variable, right? So something like this, let's say class name, right? So what it will result into, whatever is the value of this class name, let's say class name is DevOps, the variable value is DevOps, then the string will result into what? DevOps. If the variable value is something else, probably AI, then it would be, the string will result into this is AI class. Got it? Understood? Okay. Now let's say you want to go and you want to do something else. Let's say, for example, I want to do some other operation. So you can use, along with variables, you can use filters. How? Something like this. Look at it. Class name, give a pipe, and you can use filter like, okay, upper. Now, what this will result in, whatever will be the value of this class name, it will just convert it to upper. Got it? Okay. Then another filter, just like upper you have lower. What does it mean? It will just convert the value into lowercase, right? Just like that. You have title case. Title case means what? Only the first letter would be in capital, rest of the letters would be in small, right? Or you can even do some certain small operations, right? For example, you can go ahead and you can use something like this. This is whatever your variable is. Okay. You can say replace whatever value you want to replace. Let's say replace DevOps. It can be a word or even single character or even something else, right? I will say AI. Okay, now this will result into what? It will replace this keyword within the value of this class name, and it will replace it with AI. Got it? Okay. Just like that, if you want, you can even set a default value. For example, a class name default value is DevOps. Okay. Default value is DevOps. All right. And then you can use your variable. Okay. What does this means? What does this mean? So whatever value would be class name would be there. If the value has been provided, then it will use that value. Otherwise, the default value will be used as a DevOps, right? If variable doesn't contains value, default value would be DevOps. Got it? Okay. So these are like, let's say you can say string filters, right? So just like that, you have some sort of, arithmetic filters, right? Or people who know Python provide filters related to list and set. So just like that, if you don't have a variable, you can directly manipulate the value, let's say, all right? And out of this array, you want minimum value. This filter will give you some sort of minimum number out of this, right? Which will be definitely 1, correct? Let's say if you want to find out a maximum number out of your list, instead of minimum, you can just use max filter. It will result out into 3, right? Okay. And just like that, other filters, if you have, you want, let's say there are duplicates in this list, right? Then you can use unique filter to filter out the unique list. Got it, guys? Okay. So something like that. Like there are many filters available, right? And every filter is available, mentioned in the documentation. So don't worry about it. Okay. I'm just giving you a flavor, right? You can even do some sort of union, right? Union with, let's say, 4,5, and definitely it's gonna give you output something like 3, 4, 5, right? Something like that, right? So just like this, you can use other filters, probably, let's say, give a range and let's say random. Okay. And it will give you any random number till 100. Okay, kind of thing. Okay. If you even want, you can even use join. Let's say there is an array of a string, something like this is DevOps class. Right? So if this is your array and you want to join all these things, then you can give a joining parameter. Let's say join them and bifurcate them by comma or just blank. Then it will give you something like this unique string. This is DevOps class, right? If you, let's say, if you put a parameter like plus, then it will do something like this, plus is plus DevOps class. What do you guess? These filters? Okay. All right. Okay, guys. Clear? Perfect. Cool. So this is your list and set filters. For example, if you want, you can even use Python loops here, right? So how? Now, understand, if you want to use variables or in-place values, definitely you're going to go with this syntax, opening double curly braces and closing double curly braces. This much is clear for everyone, right? So this is from templating, right? So that also answers. So if you want to use any dynamic statements or any programmatic statements like for loop or something like that, right? Then to use it, use this. This is nothing but your Python syntax, right? And between this opening curly brace and closing, percent and closing brace, just type your Python piece of, let's say, for number in and give whatever it is, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever is the list, right? And you can just put down and for whatever is your Python script, right? And between this, you can just type whatever you want. Let's say I want to print number. So again, it's a variable. So in double braces number. So what it's gonna do? It's gonna print 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row, right? Do you understand? Okay. So this is basically what you can use loops, right? And similarly, if you want, you can use even conditions, right? For example, I want to figure out if this number is, I only want to print, let's say, odd numbers or even numbers, right? How can I do that? Something like this, like let's say if number modulus 2 equals to 0, right? Then print the number as it is even and simply end if, correct? You got this, guys? I hope this is clear, right? Cool. So now let's say how we can use this in Ansible or in with our playbooks. So look at it. Now let's say I have an application. I just want to deploy a simple index.html. So let me create that index.html. Okay. And if you want to create that as a template, then whatever is your file name with extension, in this case, what I want to deploy index.html, but I want to create a template for this, then index.html and .j2. It's for a Jinja template, right? So create whatever you like, file, but save it with .j2. Okay. And here you can just whatever you want. Let's say I'm giving this is now I want to print a host name, right? So I can just put down inventory host name, or you can even go and you can even type or use all the variables that you were using in your playbooks. It can be hostware, magic variable, and everything else, right? So for now, I'm just putting down inventory host name and let's say server. Okay. So what this will result into, whatever inventory host name that we have, it will result into this is inventory host name will be replaced by the inventory host name actually server. Okay. Very simple Jinja template. And now how to use that? So playbook. Just normally the way you write your playbook, write that. And if you want to leverage templates, then use this specific module, which is template module. Okay. And give the path of the template source, in this case, index.html.j2. Okay. It's just like a copy module, right? Template, and give the destination. Okay. Destination, I am putting down var www html. Now what this template module will do, this template module will look at your template file, which is index.html.j2. Okay. And it will replace all the things and it will create index.html and it will place it here. Okay. So if I run this, you see file has been deployed. And how does that file looks like? Look at it. So cat, do you see this? This is web1 server. So you can use this template for anything, right? You can just go ahead. You can just create your configuration files. You can just replace your CFG files or INI files, whatever configuration you want to do, right? Very easily. Do you understand? All right. So this is basically is what your templates are. Okay. Oh, is it? No. It should be. Let's try with this. Let's rename it. Let's run it one more time. Sorry. We'll update playbook has been. Okay. Cool. So the update is, guys, you don't even need to save your template as .j. You can just skip that part. You can just create a file, something like this. Just like we have created this index.html, and you can use all these indexes. You don't even need to save it by .j2 in the latest version of Ansible. Okay. In the previous or older versions of Ansible, you will still have to go and still have to save that file as .j2 in the older versions. Okay. It is just copy paste ratio. I mean, if there is a new, existing file, then it will replace it, right? It is just copy paste. So now let's go ahead and let's talk about a role, something called as a role. Okay. Now, basically, before we even talk about Ansible roles, let's understand something. Right now, you are writing down your playbooks, everything. But at the end of the day, what is your playbook? A single file? A playbook is nothing but your physical single file. It's not a single file. Playbook. What is this? It's a single file, right? Now, in reality, think about this. How things will happen in reality. Let's say you all are working as a DevOps team. In reality, you will be given a task to develop or something like that, right? If you want to automate something, you all as a team will be working towards something. Let's say, for example, I want you to write down a playbook which should install Apache, which should deploy an application and install Apache, configure Apache, and then deploy the application. Okay, visualize this. Installing Apache. Let's say we are allocating this task to Hina, right? Configuring the Apache. We are allocating this task to Raju, and deploying the application. We are allocating this task to Jayashree, right? Now, in reality, in the current given scenario, how all of you will be really developing this playbook. But as a playbook, then let's say if you want to deploy that, or if you want to run or configure your server, do we need to run 3 different playbooks then? You will be having a repository, GitHub repository, very nice, and you will be pushing all of your piece of code there. But who will go ahead and who will, practically speaking, push the code first or push the skeleton of your playbook? Or practically speaking, right now we are just talking about a very simple scenario, installing Apache or configuring Apache. In real life, you may have lots of dependencies, correct? Right? And probably in according to configure something or deploying dependencies, any one of you may want to leverage variable, right? So things can go a little complex. So how you gonna decide on that part and how you gonna push this? Are you trying to see the complexity while you're collaborating this? This is one of the, for now, let's say this is one of the challenge we have. I won't say problem because you can always work around towards your collaboration manually, right? But which will again eat up your time and so much of. So this is one of the challenge. Now another scenario would be, assume to start with, you as a DevOps team, probably your organization just have adopted DevOps and just have adopted Ansible as your configuration management tool, right? So probably to start with, you will not have any playbooks on anything has been developed because you just started. But eventually, after 3 months, you will have some certain set of playbook already ready with you as a DevOps team because you already developed some piece of code. You already converted that to ISE, correct? After 6 months, probably after an year, you will have lots of things which you probably may want to reuse. Yes or no? So how you will reuse this, guys? How you will reuse? How you think? Manually going to your repository, right? And finding a playbook, right? Let's say this playbook and copy that particular task, right? Copy that particular task, paste it into your intended playbook where you want to reuse. And as it is YAML, you will always need to make sure that your indenting, spacing and everything is good, right? All on top of it. Let's say, for example, can I just copy this task? Will it work? No, because we have this dependency, correct? You will also need to keep an eye on your dependencies, right? Copy along with your task and everything. So can you look at this in terms of reusability? Can you visualize this, right? And the right approach would be, definitely we should be able to reuse it just by calling it or just by doing very easy, right? Which should be very easy to manage, sensible, and obviously reusable, correct? So then how do we tackle with these two challenges? So to tackle with these operational challenges of reusability, manageability, flexibility, Ansible gives us something called as a role. So first of all, how to create a role? Very simple. Command is Ansible Galaxy init and give the name of your role. Give the name of your role. Let's say, for example, in my case, I want to give name of my role is web. Okay. And that's all. You see, it says role web was created successfully. Good. So I'm just installing this package to show you the directory structure. Okay. Now, basically, what is a role? Okay. Now, if you look at it, do you see a web directory has been created, right? And if you look at the directory structure, look at this. This is a directory structure of a role. These names seem to be familiar with you. Handlers, meta, tasks, templates, variable, files. Seems familiar, guys? Right? So basically, what is a role? Role is nothing but a simple directory structure creates for us. And it enforces you. If you want to write down task, in a role, then where you will be writing down your task? In the task directory. If you want to write down handlers, where you will be writing down your handlers? In handlers directory. If you want to keep any dependencies, where you will be keeping your dependencies? In files directory, right? Let's say, for example, when I'm saying dependency, you remember when we deployed our index.html as an application, correct? With copy module, you remember, guys? So all those dependencies, where you will keep it? In files.directory. Just now we created a template. You will keep your templates, guys. Templates directory. Do you understand? All of your variables, where you will be declaring them? In vars directory. Okay? Do you understand this? What happens here, because of this predefined directory structure, Ansible forces you to create a standardized role, right? What does it mean? If you write down your task anywhere you want, let's say in files or in other directory, it will not respect. No, it will not even identify that as a task. So by default, first, even if you don't like, you are creating some sort of standardization across your DevOps team when it comes to developing the roles or even playbook, right? That is one thing. This standardized structure will also help you in probably in manageability, right? All the variables, you know where to look at in this vars directory, right? Probably in playbook, everyone is free to define their variables wherever they want. They can create magic variables, they can create host level variables, group level variables, and you will just in the name of debugging, you will just land up looking here and there for the probable solutions, correct? But with roles, it becomes very handy when it comes to debugging or even managing it. Got it? Now, let's say if you have defined your role and task using all these features or whatever things we have discussed till now. So basically how Ansible understands this. So entry point or the execution entry point for Ansible is your task. I mean this main.yaml in every directory, right? If Ansible has to look at the task, from where Ansible will start to look at the task? This main.yaml in your task directory. Okay. For example, if you want to define a variable, if Ansible wants to identify the variable, where Ansible will look at main.yaml of variable. If Ansible wants to go ahead and wants to look at your handlers, where Ansible will look at in main.yaml of your handler. Perfect. So before we go ahead and write down this exact role or the problems which we have discussed just now. Okay. So for now, let's go ahead and let's write down this exact role. This one. Okay. Cool. So first, install Apache. All right. So probably, let's say, again, we will get into the same problem because you want to write down everything in this main.yaml, right? Again, Git, right? So if every one of you tries to modify, it is very easy that you will face conflict situations here, right? So then operationally and in real life, how do we do that? So practically speaking, at least in my experience, in my 17, 18 years, I never ever placed anything in this main.yaml. Okay. So then how do we do that? So basically how do we do that is look at it. What probably you would like to decide, and all of you will write down your own task. Okay, your own task. All right. And one more important thing, guys, in playbook, we used to define two things. First, what needs to happen, and second, where it needs to happen, isn't it? However, when it comes to roles, we only define what needs to happen. That's all. We do not define anything else. We just define what needs to happen. We do not define where it needs to happen. Is this clear? Okay. Now, with this understanding, let's write down this role. So for example, let's say what Hina probably, as she's responsible to write down the task related to install Apache, what she may decide is she can create her own individual task, a separate file altogether, install Apache. And here, what we define? Only one thing. What needs to happen? So what needs to happen? Let's say name, install Apache, and the module just the way you were using with playbooks, right? Apache 2, state should be, and all the other related tasks which probably Hina would like to write down in according to install the Apache. Okay. Similarly, probably Reju, in terms of configuring the Apache, he may would like to go ahead and he may would like to write down altogether a different physical file for his task, right? Let's say config Apache, right? So Apache, a physical separate file. And here also config Apache, and in the name of configuration, just for the demo, we will simply start the Apache service. Cool. And following all the other tasks, if you want to then write it down, or let's say deploying an application. So probably Jayashree would like to deploy.yaml, would like to write down a separate file, correct? So let's say deploy application, and as it is probably HTML, we just want to go ahead and we just need to simply write down application, the file name which we want to deploy, and the path var w HTML. But now one thing, guys, do you see this index.html, right? This is a dependency now, yes or no? So where do you think we need to keep this dependency, guys? In which directory? Let's put down our file here, right? So let's say Ansible roles. Cool, simply, right? We have pressed this file. Now assume as a part of deployment, Jayashree also wants to start the server. So now how she can start? By writing down a handler, right? Let's say notify restart Apache. So this handler, where we will need to write this handler, guys? In handlers directory, correct? So let's say I'm writing down this handler here, name restart Apache, and restart the Apache, let's say service, name equals to Apache 2, and state should be restart. Got this, guys? Understood? How we wrote it down? Whenever now you will execute this role, we just discussed what is the entry point, main.yaml for that particular thing. Yes or no? So if you look at the main.yaml of this task, do we have any task here, guys? Not at all. So we will have to include or probably call those respective tasks, correct? Right? So how can we do that? Simply include task, okay? And just give the path of your physical file. In this case, I will just give the file name because my files are in the same directory, correct? So include task and include this task first now. Okay. So let's say after this, I want to include this task, right? After this, probably I would like to include this task, and include task means this physical file. All the tasks will be placed here. Then or whatever task you have mentioned in this file, all the tasks will be placed here, right? Just like that, it will execute in the same sequence. Now look at it. What happened now? As you were able to bifurcate, so operationally think about it. Will you have any Git conflicts or any merging or any other issue operationally? If you're using GitHub as your repository, DevOps repository, will you face any issues so far? Operationally? No, correct? Because every one of you, practically speaking, are working independently, right? Then set an important thing. Let's say now you have roles for everything. So if you look at it, we have bifurcated our task into physical files, physically different files, right? So if you want to reuse this install Apache, can you simply copy this file and use in any other role without just getting into all these complexities of YAML? You can simply copy that and include it there. Yes or no? So in terms of manageability, do you see this much more better compared to writing down simple playbooks? Got it? Okay. So our role is ready. Okay. So how do we execute this role now? So practically speaking, what we will do, we will write down now a playbook, simple playbook. And what we will do here, we will tell now where this has to be executed. So I'm saying web 1, if you want to give elevated access or do privilege escalation, then do that. And now here, what you want to execute, guys? Tasks? No, you want to execute roles. And which role? Just give the name. Let's say web 1. If you have multiple roles, then give multiple roles. right? And something like that, your list goes on. Now, as it is simple playbook, the way we execute Ansible playbook and the path of the playbook, just it will, I placed my role, the playbook in the same directory. This shouldn't be the case. Okay. You will have to put your role, playbook outside of the role itself. So let's say I will remove this file, come out of your role. Okay. You see, come out of your role. And now create your playbook and save it. Cool. So you see, now all of it is including task and installing Apache. Basically, all these tasks which you have mentioned in respective task files. Yes, in this case, it will just install the Apache, right? Not only Apache, but yeah, configuring the Apache and even deploying the application, everything. No, it's outside of your role. Your playbooks should be outside of your role. And practically speaking, the directory structure of role shouldn't be modified. Yeah, first you create roles and then playbook now. Sequence can be anything, but see, at the end of the day, what happens wherever you have kept your role, wherever you have kept your playbook. In this case, where I have kept my playbook in this directory, Ansible demo, correct? So this playbook, which is calling my role, so if you execute this, playbook will try to find the role in the same level, at the same level. That's the default behavior. So probably just clarifying one thing. So what do we do in real life? Do we develop playbooks or do we develop roles? Practically speaking, writing down roles is encouraged, definitely, because of all these benefits that we get. But let's say if you have very small requirements, you are just doing some sort of patchwork or temporary work, yeah, you can always go with the playbook. Technically, you're always free to write down roles or even playbook, right? And it drills down to your style, or probably if you're writing down something which you think it's gonna be there for a long time and it will keep evolving, then probably writing down role will make more sense instead of play. Okay, cool. So that brings me to another thing. Let's say, do we write down roles right from scratch every time? Answer is no. Okay, answer is no. We do not do that. Okay, so what do we do then? So Ansible is an open source tool, right? Correct. So what Ansible did, Ansible, just like you are creating your roles, just like that, other peoples are also creating their roles. And where they are hosting here in Ansible Galaxy. Okay. So if you go here, let's say I'll just put this URL to everyone. If you go here to roles, and if you just look for it, let's say MySQL, search for it, and you will get so many roles developed by so many people, right? Okay. So you can even download any existing role. Let's say, for example, I'm taking this one. So either you can just copy this command, right? Or you can visit this GitHub repository for this role, where role is kept. You can just download that manually also if you want to. Okay. Or you can just copy this command, come to your Ansible controller, paste it, and give the path where this has to be downloaded. So I'm giving -p to provide the path. Okay. So install means what? Install means nothing else. It will just download it. Look at it. You see, this role got downloaded, right? And now you go to this role, and you see, just like that, you can just use this role. So many times, if you look at this Galaxy, there are so many roles available for everything. So what you can do is you can check first the Galaxy, whether you are, whatever requirements you have, if you got the roles or not, right? If you think that there is a role which you can always reuse, then in that case, always suggested or recommended path is check that downloaded role from Ansible Galaxy on, let's say, test or lower environment, not on production. Okay. And if it's something that you can reuse, then go ahead and reuse that. Okay, it's all the roles placed here are under MIT license, so there is no harm to reuse it. Okay, cool. So that's what Ansible Galaxy is. Probably, Hina, you can just have a look at it. That will help you in this scenario. Ansible roles and Ansible galaxies. Now, for the last topic, Ansible what? Let me first tell you a very simple thing. So let's say, look at this. This day file. What is it for us? Inventory. Correct. So this is our inventory, right? And practically speaking, is it mandatory, guys? Right now, we are using password-less authentications with our nodes, correct? Is it mandatory that in real life, every organization will be only using password-less authentications? Is it mandatory? No. Anyone can use password-less authentication or probably password-based authentication or probably key-based authentications, right? What does that mean? It means this inventory file is very critical and sensitive for us, correct? If anyone gets their hands on this inventory file, probably they will be having access to the complete infrastructure, yes or no? Because they will be having IP, username, key file, or even password, like in according to access, correct? Yes or no, right? So how do we protect this kind of sensitive data? Inventory is just an example. You may have other files as a part of your Ansible playbook or role. So how do we keep that protected, right? So the answer to that is Ansible Vault. Okay, Ansible Vault. So for example, if I want to protect this inventory, what can I do? I can simply encrypt it, right? Something like this. Ansible Vault and encrypt. And what you want to encrypt? Let's say my inventory file. Cool. So as soon as you say, hey Ansible Vault, encrypt this inventory file, it will ask you a vault password. So this vault password is nothing but your encryption key, which Ansible will use. Okay. So whatever key or basically vault password that you are giving to encrypt this inventory, please make sure that you remember it. Okay. So let's say I'm just putting something and confirm the password. Okay. Encryption is successful, right? And if you look at your inventory now, you see it has been encrypted now, right? And it uses by default AES encryption. So it's been encrypted. So what does it mean now? Can I run my playbook? Of course you can. How? Ansible playbook. And simply go ahead and simply say, give a path of playbook. You see? And Ansible is saying, I cannot read your inventory. Reason is, it's encrypted. Got it? So what we can do now? So we can instruct Ansible that whenever you are now executing my playbook, ask for a vault password. I'm not going to decrypt it. You need to ask me a password if you want to read my inventory. Okay. So as soon as you execute, so before now executing your playbook, it will ask for a vault password, which you have used to encrypt your inventory. And that's all. What Ansible will do, Ansible will not decrypt it. It will use that key to read the information, right? And keep your file encrypted only. Okay. And if you want to decrypt it, okay, then you can just go ahead and just like you used encrypt, you can just give Ansible Vault decrypt and the file name. It will again ask the password and it will decrypt it for you. As it is now decrypted, it's humanly readable. Is this clear, guys? Ansible Vault, how you can use that to protect your information? Cool. So that's what basically, guys, Ansible is for you. Understood? There is another method as well, definitely. So when you are running your playbook, so let's say this is my playbook, and what you can do, you can use another switch, which is vault password file. And okay, in this, you can give a file, let's say whatever file name is, txt. And in this file, you can mention your password so that Ansible will read your password from this file. That's another way. But why we didn't discuss this? it's not the safest way, because at the end of the day, if you're just like, putting your password noted somewhere, I mean, anyone can again get hands on it, right? Got it? Okay. So then let's do it this way. What you can do is you can go ahead and you can write down your first role exactly for the same scenario. Okay. Configuring the Apache, right? I mean, installing, configuring, and deploying the application. Only difference is you don't need to create your dependencies by yourself. You can simply use this repository, or probably, in our case, we deleted that repository. Cool. So let me just go ahead. Yesterday we created this repository, right? I'll just add one file here. Welcome to Ansible. Okay. So use this repository and deploy this application on your node. Okay. But using roles now. Don't write a playbook. Yeah. Okay. So I guess what, 20 minutes should be fine to write down a simple role. So Cynthia, it is just like declaration of a variable that you will do in the vars, and you will just use it just like you use in normal playbook. Please go ahead, guys, write down your simple role